What is up? 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 What is up, Grocknation? Welcome back this evening to the arcade for another Grock Stories. Tonight's episode is going to be a little more somber, a little more on a serious note compared to my other stories. We're going to be discussing my 2017 trip to Auschwitz concentration camps in Poland. We're going to go a little bit through that and my experience, my thoughts on it, and everything else. Before we get started though, guys, if you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button, and if you like the video, be sure to give it that thumbs up. Alright, let's dig right into this. So, this spring of 2017, I've touched on this before, between 2015 and 2021, we used to travel twice a year, in the spring and in the fall, shoulder season months. If you're a person that wants to travel, you're interested in traveling and seeing these places, especially Europe, you're from North America, Canada, or the US, flights are always on sale for the spring months and the fall months. This season is the summer months, and you won't get much wiggle room in terms of prices for flights, accommodations, and such. So, the spring of 2017, we decided, where'd we go? Where'd we go first? Did we go to Ireland? Or was that 2018? 2018 we did Great Britain and Ireland, I think. I can't recall. We went somewhere in the spring of 2017. It was in Iceland. Oh my goodness, I'm drawing a blank. Okay, it was Ireland. We went to Ireland in the spring of 2017. And in the summer, I got a notification for cheap flights to Munich, Germany for the month of September. The shoulder season months, September and May. If you guys book them and you plan your vacations around them, especially the week before, the week after, the week before June, the week after August, it's essentially the same weather. You're not missing much. So, and it's literally sometimes a quarter of the price. So I immediately knew. We only had been to Munich the one time when we backpacked Europe in 2015. So I told her, my fiance, let's land in Munich because it's right central Europe, and do 4 countries. We had 16 days or 15 days, just a little over 2 weeks. And I said we can hit up Germany, Austria, Czech Republic, and Poland. I told her I've always wanted to see the concentration camps in Krakow. We can go and see Auschwitz. So we booked it, and we made the trip. I believe it was September or October, I can't recall. It was September for sure, because everything was still nice and green in Europe. I think it was middle of September though. We landed in Munich, and we took a bus. I'm not going to touch too much on this trip in general. I might save that for another story. There's a lot of good stories and funny stories from this trip, but this isn't really what this video is about. I will touch on that. The train system in Europe is the way to go if you're going to travel Europe. But sometimes the bus is just as quicker, if not quicker, and it's just as comfortable. Buses in Europe are not like buses, Greyhound buses or whatnot here in North America. They have tables and servers and everything. It's nice. It's a legit experience, relaxing experience. So we took a bus to Prague. We spent, I think, 4 days in Prague or 3 days in Prague. And I just felt super jet lagged. I don't know what it was. That was the longest flight we'd ever taken. It was a direct flight from Toronto all the way to Munich. I think it was 8.5 hours. and I just felt like shit. I told myself it must be jet lag. So my Prague experience was not that great. We got an overnight train to Krakow, and I wanted to do it last. Everyone told me you want to do that last because it's going to put you in a somber mood, like a downer mood, when you see that, people that have traveled there before. But we went there right after Prague, an overnight train. We got to the beautiful city of Krakow. It is a nice old Polish city, and a cinema buff like me really loved it, especially because I love Schindler's List. I think Schindler's List is one of the greatest movies ever made, one of the most important movies ever made. If you have never seen it, you've been interested in Holocaust, I suggest you watch that. A lot of it was filmed there, right there in the city, the churches, the streets, the cafes, the Jewish quarter, everything is there. So we rented an apartment right in Old Town, and as soon as we got there, we made our arrangements to go on the Auschwitz tour. If you're going to do this, guys, make sure that you go with a tour guide so you get maximum experience and you learn as much as you can. I'm not going to look into any of this beforehand in this video. There's a lot. There's too much. People go to school to learn about the Holocaust. I'll kind of touch on some of the things I've seen and remember from this experience, but we booked our tours for the following morning. That day in Krakow, what we did was we did a tour, the full tour of the city, old city, on a little moped. Not like a moped, like a tut-tut almost. And they took us everywhere to the ghetto, the Jewish ghetto, where they rounded them all up to take them to the camps, where they were, they had to check in the lists and the tables with the Nazis. We also went to Schindler's Factory, which is like a Schindler museum in Krakow. And we just tried to enjoy as much as we could that first night. Like I said, I was feeling pretty bad. We went to the pharmacy and we got their version of Neocitrin, which I guess is called Thermaflu, or Theraflu, I can't remember. And we packed it in early because it was an early morning. It was like 9 or 10 a.m. Tour. We got the early ones, so we'd have the rest of our day. And the next morning I made my Neocitrin. I still felt like shit. And I remember I had to tell myself, I have no right to be feeling, or complaining about how I feel and how sick I feel. Considering where I'm going, the balls of that. I was thinking to myself afterwards, like, I got nothing to complain about. None of us do, really, that have, never lived through that kind of horror. So, small world, side story, not really getting off topic, but we got in a bus, because a bus picks everybody up at this square. And when we got to the first site to take it to, there's two sites, the main Auschwitz camp, and then they take it to the Birkenau camp afterwards, but the first one is the main camp in Auschwitz. I don't know if the town's Auschwitz or that's just what the camp was called. But when we got there, this is like I'm saying kind of veering, but it's not really off topic. There was like a group of like 20 of us. They're not very big tour groups. There's two guys, older guys. There was an older gentleman with a salt and pepper hat on. He had a Canadian flag pin on. And there was another guy wearing a Team Canada jacket, like a sports jacket. So I told my fiance, let's go and sit with the Canadians or stand with the Canadians. And so we did. Introduced ourselves. And the guy with the sport jacket on works for the same mining company I work for in Newfoundland and Labrador. He doesn't. I work in a Thompson one. He works in that one, and he knew every Thompson guy that transferred over there a few years back. So we knew the same people. It was so weird. How on earth we bumped into each other at that exact moment in that exact place is beyond me. Cosmic coincidence, really. So we start the tour. It's all on foot. The English tour. All of us were English-speaking tourists. There was other tours going on there with different speakers. I remember it was a beautiful morning, super nice and cool, and not cold, not too warm, but just nice and cool. There was a little bit of dew on the ground, and it was kind of foggy, and As soon as the first thing you see when you walk through there is those gates, those infamous gates everyone's seen. And I think what the sign read was, "Work hard for freedom" or something, is what it says. These Nazis would try to tell these Jewish people that if they worked hard enough and worked there long enough, they would get their freedom. And you'll see they're twisted in a lot of ways. The things they did to these people is really fucked up. So they take you through all their quarters, their sleeping quarters in there. This is not the same camp that most people are familiar with the Birkenau camp. You recognize the gate of the main Auschwitz. It's been in a bunch of movies and whatnot, but they take you to their quarters where they ate. You learn there that, they rationed their food so that they would slowly starve. They measured their calories so that they would slowly starve, and then when they were done with them, they would exterminate them, literally. So these people never had a chance. They were never meant to, stay there until the end of the war. The ones that did, that survived, were crazy lucky. Yeah, they had pictures of their food and whatnot, everything they ate, and they showed how they slowly cut their calories down for the work they were doing to slowly, starve them. There's tons of pictures of them in there, black and white pictures. There's areas in their research labs we went to where you find out that they were doing tests on the children there to try to figure out how to make them sterile. They were trying to sterile all the Jewish people so they couldn't procreate anymore. Sick, twisted stuff. There's pictures of those poor kids in there. And then you get to the area where all their luggage and whatnot, when they got there, they told them to mark all their luggage with their names and where they're from, so that when they leave the concentration camp, they can grab their luggage. It was... I remember when I was seeing all this, the sign at the gate and then the luggage, this fantasy that they were going to get away. It really is like lambs to slaughter, so to speak, where you don't want to show them you're going to kill them because you'll start fear and panic, and you'll start revolts, maybe potential revolts, because they don't, they figure we're going to die anyway, we might as well try to get away. So they had all these bullshit things to make them think they were going to leave. And another room had and these are walls, massive walls worth behind glass of suitcases, and they got, countries on them, Poland, Ukraine, everything like that, right? And the years they were, picked up what years they were. And they got rooms with odd little things like crutches and canes, wheelchairs, all those kind of little items you would need. They threw those aside too. They would go through all their baggage, and they would find everything that was of worth anything, gold, little trinkets, whatnot. Obviously, when they would exterminate the Jewish people, I'll get to that later, but they used to pull their teeth out. If they had gold teeth, they would pull gold teeth out. The Jews that were in charge of examining the bodies before they threw them out, one of the things they would check for is teeth. And then came the one part that actually got me nauseous, and I actually wasn't expecting it. Well, to feel that way, to feel nauseous, was and it's the only place you're not allowed to take pictures, and I wouldn't because it'd be disrespectful anyway. But they sorry about that, my cat just walked in. It was a wall, massive wall of hair, human hair, like a big mountain of it behind glass, because they would shave their heads, men and women. And you find out that, these resourceful, sinister sickos that the Nazis were, they would actually use their hair to make blankets for soldiers out in the field. Blankets and sometimes, clothing towards the end of the war when supplies were running low. So they were, keeping themselves warm at night with blankets made of these Jewish people's hair. Like, it's fucked up. And I remember looking at all of it, and I don't know what it was. It just got me nauseous to my stomach, sick to my stomach, and I was glad when we got out of that room. And then the last room, people always say, you'll get, no matter what happens, you'll get emotional when you're there. And I'm like, I don't think that's possible. It happened so long ago that there wouldn't be anything I would see that would make me get emotional, I would think. Because it's history, or it's a long time ago. But there was the shoes. They, again, massive wall of piles of shoes behind glass, and very old-fashioned shoes, 30s style, 40s style shoes. And I remember looking at it all going, oh my goodness. And then what got me was there was a little tinier, it's almost like a sample. It obviously wasn't all of them. And I didn't get it at first, but we walked past and looked at it. But those shoes were children's shoes, little kid shoes. They were little shoes about this big, some of them like this. And you realize that, my God, you forget sometimes how evil they were. You find out afterwards how they would put them in the gas chambers. They would strip them naked and put them in there. And I think about that, there was a little white shoe with a flower on it, and I took a picture of it and put it on my Instagram. Among all these shoes, it just stood out. And I remember thinking like that belonged to probably a little 8-year-old girl, little Jewish girl. It wasn't just Jews all as well, obviously, as we all know, but it was most likely a Jewish person. They were the ones, they made up 90% of the camps. It was a little girl, and they stripped her naked and they shaved her head. And, she was probably separated from her parents, terrified, going into those chambers. And I remember thinking of all that at once when we were walking there, and it bothered me, and honestly, it's upsetting me now talking about it. But I had to leave and go around a corner, and I had to actually wipe a tear away from my eye, and my fiance was still looking with everybody else. And I was like, oh my God, these fucking guys were evil. Like, if you're a person that believes in a heaven or a hell, these people are in hell, for sure. That's a different kind of evil. And, so we left that area, and, we went to the courtyard where you can see the execution wall. That's where they would execute them. There's also poles there where they would hang them from they'd tie their arms behind their back, and they would hang them on those poles until their shoulders would dislocate, and then they would cut them down, and they would see if they could still work after that, and if they couldn't, it would be an excuse to execute them, so they put them on a wall and they'd shoot them. And I can't remember the sick number of the amount of Jews that were executed on that wall. I just remember she was telling us the Pope goes and she blesses that wall all the time. People lay flowers there. Same things in their little dungeons they have, like their solitary confinement. There's flowers down there as well. And I remember among all this horror, I went to one of the windows that was facing out towards like the other buildings, or kind of like the side. And it was such a beautiful morning, and like I said, the dew and everything, and the sun was shining nice. I could hear birds, and I was thinking to myself, like, how many years ago was that? 80 years ago. If I was standing in this exact spot 80 years ago, first off, I'm not Aryan. I would be in that camp. 80 years ago, one of them might have been sitting at that spot, looking out on a beautiful day, going, my God, I wish I could get out of this place, or what's happening in the world right now. And it's a very somber, sober experience when you think about things like that while you're there, yeah, I think if there's anything else I should touch up with that main area that we looked at. We went outside, and outside they have I guess the commander of the camps, his villa, or his little mansion he had, like the Ray Fiennes character in Schindler's List. It wasn't his though. I think his was in Germany, or was it Birkenau? I can't remember. But it was a character like that. It was the commander of that camp, and then they had the area still set up with the bellows and everything where he was hung. It's all still there when he was hung after the war. But right outside his place, like right outside, like pretty much a stone's throw from your back door, basically, was one of the gas chambers and incinerators. And it was one of the last ones. I think it's the only one in that area anyway. Maybe not the other camps. There was obviously other camps in Europe that's still intact. Because the massive one at Birkenau, the massive like half football stadium sized one, they destroyed that one at the end of the war. We'll get to that in a bit. But this one is still intact. So you can go inside. And you enter the exact same way these Jewish people were ushered into these chambers. And, they were fooled into thinking that they were showers. There were shower heads in there. And that they would usher them in. And, we hear the horror stories recently of the one guy. There's that Netflix documentary. One of the Nazis, the SS officers, who had a sword, and he would stab people if they wouldn't go in, kids included. Get them in there, and, sometimes they would hand them bars of soap, again, like I said, lambs to slaughter. So they'd all be in there naked and afraid and cold. They'd lock them in and they'd drop these pellets in. I never understood or never looked into the process of how they gas them. But they used these pellets. I can't remember what chemicals were in these pellets, but they would emit a gas. And they would slowly gas them out. And they would scream and in agony and in pain. And in that chamber, you can see human scratch marks into the cement. And I didn't know at first. I was looking around and she said those are scratch marks from them when they were dying. And I put my hand next to them and look at them and think someone was clawing themselves here. And what's worse is you look down low when there's some low, like thigh level, where it might have been little kids, and you're like, it's upsetting me. Give me a second here. Sorry it upsets me when I talk about this, especially those things there. See, my eyes are a little bit red. Super important to see though, guys, and it really gives you an idea of how evil, the human beings can be to one another, and how some people that, like, those people are sociopaths. They have to be. You have to have no heart, no sympathy if you're going to go through and do something like that. How do you sleep at night? How do you not, how do you not kill yourself, instead of doing something like that? I don't know. But eventually, that scene of that tour, we had a quick little lunch break, and I remember no one talked during lunch. We all just ate. And we loaded back in the bus. We went up a little further away to the Birkenau camp, which is the big main brick tower building you see in Schindler's List and all these documentaries, and just looking at it is intimidating. And walking up to it, beautiful green flowers or yellow flowers in this nice field, and you're like, oh my god, this is a death camp. You go through underneath the gates, and you're on the train tracks, where they brought them in by the train loads. Again, you can see that in Schindler's List. My only picture I took of this place was on those train tracks, because they're important, they're significant, they're important to this whole thing, because that's where they all got brought in from. My fiance had to get a picture of me there, standing there, and I couldn't smile if I wanted to anyway, but I would never smile, or it's just that picture is my mood the whole day we were there. Like, it was like 4 hours to store. And they have all their rooms where they stayed, these barns. I think they were barns. They had one still intact on how they were, they used to pile them in there. And at those train crossings in there, there's not train crossings, but at the very middle of those train tracks in a camp, that's where they would inspect you. And they would decide right then and there, like they say me, 6'3", 230-pound man. They would see me and they'd be like, okay, well, he looks like we can probably get about a half a year work out of him before, he's a skeleton. from us starving him slowly. Then we'll kill him. Then we'll get about six months work of him out of him, so he can stay. So I would go, maybe to the right or to the left, wherever it may be, where it was, and then someone, maybe a younger little kid or something, goes, "They're like, we got enough kids. We don't need them." That one will go to the left, and basically one line goes directly into the gas chamber. The other line goes and gets their prison outfits, and they get assigned to a bunk and they get to work. But the other ones, again, had no idea. So they got pictures of them marching, hundreds of them together, men, women, children, hand in hand, walking, towards this massive gas chamber. And again, they would fool them and tell them they were they were going to shower them, and then they were going to go to the camp. But of course they wouldn't. They would kill them. And of course it's beneath them to take care of the bodies, so they would have some of the Jewish people disposing of the bodies. And again, they would have to check for, teeth and whatnot, gold teeth, pull them out. And then they would physically throw them in the incinerators themselves. And that's what they did all day long, these Jewish workers. And they were sworn to secrecy, to not tell, the rest of the prisoners what's happening. They know, obviously. I don't know if they were given any extra, I don't know what the word I'm looking for here is, benefits for doing that job and keeping that secret. I doubt it. Maybe they figured it would buy them more time if they were the ones doing that. But toward the end of the war, the last weeks of the war, they demolished all across Europe. They tried to demolish all their camps as they were abandoning and killing as many of them as they could. Obviously some would hide, or they just have ammunition, or they would just abandon the camps in general, the Nazis. And so that building was imploded. The ruins are still there. And the ashes from the incinerators there, they dumped them in this pond. And of course, this pond now has gravestones on it of all the people that were dumped there. It's like a memorial site for them now. But yeah, that's pretty much the tour. We went around, we got some pictures. I went up in the tower and looked around there and just walked along the fence and everything else around that camp. It's a very, very somber, sobering experience, like I said. There wasn't much talking, even when we were alone. I couldn't really, all I could do the whole time I was there was shake my head, because I couldn't believe people could be like this. I can't believe people are capable of doing that to one another. To have that kind of hatred in your heart that you would harm a child because you don't like people based on, the color of their skin or what religion they follow. Obviously this is still happening today. It's happening in the Middle East as we speak, as this video is going on. But yeah, that was Auschwitz. We got back from the tour, and we got back like 2 or 3 in the afternoon. We had the rest of the afternoon. It was our last day in Krakow, and I really couldn't enjoy it. None of us, we tried to, but I had a hard time sleeping that night as well. Yeah, it was a very sombering experience. My mic keeps moving. If you're wondering why my head started over here and it's over here now, my mic's moving. But yeah, guys, that was my experience in Auschwitz. I would highly recommend it to anybody that's into history, and it's definitely something important to see if you're going to be in that area of Europe. Try to make time. Like I said, Krakow's a nice host of a city. It's a beautiful little city. I really did fall in love with it the 2 days we were there. Well, 2.5 days. We had a whole day when we first got there. Yeah, Auschwitz. If you guys have been there, let me know in the comments down below. Let me know what you think. Like I said, I didn't really research any of this ahead of time in terms of like the history of the Holocaust. Like I said, why the numbers or exactly what happened, just what I remember from my experience there and what I've seen. So, yeah, that's gonna be it for this video, though, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this. My history buffs that maybe like history stuff. French Whisper is amazing for that, by the way, if you guys are looking for an ASMR guy that does history. But with that being said, guys, have a great day, great night, whatever it may be, and peace out. Peace out.